So as you see, we have very varied members, ranging from banks, commercial banks, but development banks. We've got NGOs on board. We've got asset managers on board. We have a crowdfunding platform on board. And as you see on the left side, we've got a short summary. There are 13 members, which altogether invest 4.2 billion euros into the inclusive finance sector space. And that is spread across over 1,100 financial service providers, and that is in 97 countries. So that is quite significant as a player when we all come together. And our aim is really to find pre-competitive spaces on niche topics that are going to be mainstream, to join forces and learn from each other and support pilots such as the ones we will hear from today. So shortly, this slide shows a bit of the thinking behind our work on geodata. We saw on the left-hand side the Geodata for Agriculture and Water program executed by the Netherlands Space Office that uses geodata or satellite imagery to develop geodata-based applications for farmers. And we, as NPM, decided to form a partnership with Rabobank, FMO, ICCO, the Netherlands Space Office, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and set up our Geodata for Inclusive Finance and Food workstream, the G4IFF, that would aim to take these geodata-based applications and transform them to make them available to financial service providers, to financial institutions. And this information would eventually, as you can see, reduce monitoring transaction costs and improve risk management. We think that the link between the financial institution and the smallholder farmer is really essential to make for success and to allow for the smallholder farmer to really increase their yield. So in that respect, we've decided to promote geodata projects. And the way we did that is by an innovators challenge. We invited tech companies to propose geodata solutions that will be geared to financial service providers. The aim was to reduce the transaction costs, to lower the risks, to improve the smallholder farmer performance, to provide a digital track record, and to increase their outreach. On this slide, you see we've had 17 participants that took part in this whole process, out of which 6 finalists were able to pitch their ideas, and the 3 winners are with us today. That is Apollo Agriculture, VanderSat, and Agri-wallet. I won't say much more because you'll hear from them directly. I'll move on to the agenda. We will hear today from Albert Boogaard from the Rabobank Foundation, who will introduce opportunities of geodata for FSPs. We'll then be joined by Mariel Mensink, who is going to introduce the ACAD tool, which is an agricultural credit assessment tool. We've had a bit of issues with Mr. Teshome Dayesso from Buusaa Gonofaa, so I will update you on that as we go. Hopefully he can join us and react on the ACAD tool. He is the CEO of the MFI that's been implementing this tool. Then we will have VanderSat, Céline Nobel, who is going to talk about their work, about their data and the platform that they're working on. And in a similar way, we'll have their implementing partner Tulaa react to their presentation. And as last 2 speakers, we'll have the 2 other winners, Apollo Agriculture and Agri-wallet, share their projects and lessons learned so far. We have some space for Q&A in the end, so I would ask you to please leave these questions or keep your questions for the end. There is a Q&A box and feel free to type them there. I will read them out. Albert, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Catalina. My name is Albert Boogaard and I'm Innovation Lead at Rabo Foundation. And I have 10 minutes to talk about opportunities and also do's and don'ts, which is a bit short. I'll keep it concise and leave all the details to the companies and the fintechs present here. And when talking about geodata, it's important to notice that all those satellites have not been developed for smallholders or for agriculture in any way. So in a way, it is a kind of solution looking for a problem, which is what it is, because it has great opportunities, but it also means we follow a kind of reverse process, starting with a solution and then finding where to implement it. That's how it is. We can't change that. So what are the opportunities? The first one is a better advised farmer, a better advised client is, of course, a lower risk farmer. He has better services, more risk mitigating in place, better cash flows, etc. That's an easy one, and that's true for geodata and for all services. But especially if you look at the financial sector, there are two main problems why 80–90% of the smallholder farmers doesn't receive finance. And that is basically high risk costs, but also high transaction costs, which basically means if you provide only credit guarantees, you're not there yet, because loans are small, roads are bad, fuel is expensive, and we all know how that works. And it's there that geodata can play a role to reduce those transaction costs, in addition to risk cost. And there are basically two stages. It's pre-disbursement. It's all about client selection. It's about risk assessment, but also about crop suitability, looking at drought indexes for different areas. And there is a post-disbursement phase where geodata can add value, which basically allows you to do better monitoring or to make more selective monitoring and reduce costs based on that. And so that's how it helps to reduce transaction costs. There's no farmer in the world that will be financed based on geodata alone. I think we're all that much involved in financial access. We all understand that. So it's all about finding where remote sensing geodata provides added value, sufficient added value to reduce risk and reduce transaction costs. And we're going to hear a couple of great examples later on in the presentation on that. I usually also explain why it's necessary. If you look at the yield gaps, that's the next slide. I mean, it's very clear that if nothing changes, this is the case of Africa. Africa will not be able to feed itself, not by far. The dotted line basically shows the result of population growth from 1 to 2 billion in 2050. So something has to change, and we are convinced digitization and technology can play a role in that, and part of that is geodata. The other slide was shown in the previous expert meeting. It's a recent Dalberg study, which basically shows that in spite of all the Nobel Prizes for microfinance and all the beautiful things we heard about that, I mean, agriculture is still not very well covered. The graphs, all the white blocks basically tell us that 80–90% of smallholder financing needs are not covered. Well, that's to a large extent because of high risk and transaction costs. And that's why we believe we should explore all possibilities to reduce that. And geodata is one of them, and I believe more and more it's a very important part of that. And why is that all happening now? Because it's 50 years ago that Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. So, I mean, why suddenly all this attention for geodata? There are a lot of new developments. VanderSat is a great one, which will be explained later on. But even very recently, most remote sensing technologies were not able to see through clouds, which doesn't make sense a lot, because then you have a monitoring tool, and then you discover that in the growing season it's cloudy every day, including the Netherlands, where we did pilots as well with satellite data already 10 years ago. There seemed to be quite a strong correlation between clouds, rainfall, and the Dutch growing season. And that was, of course, not a surprise, but it was a problem. And now that there are satellites that can see through clouds, of which the VanderSat technology is one, that provides a lot of new opportunities. There's also a lot of free data available from the Copernicus program that was not there 3 years ago. Although that's more commercial data, the revisit rate goes up based on miniaturization, small satellites, nano satellites, and data storage is becoming a commodity more and more AI machine learning image processing technology is around, which basically means it's much easier to make sense out of all those billions and billions of pixels. And then, of course, geodata is not the only thing. It's also about collecting field data and translating insights from geodata back to the farmers. And that's where mobile phones, even more and more smartphones, rural internet connectivity really comes in. So that's a bit the momentum. It's geodata, it's rural connectivity, smartphones, access to cloud platforms, software platforms, ERP platforms, lots of data from IoT, from supply chains. And it's basically that combination of data that is going to produce a lot of added value. You will also see that in the cases of, for instance, Agri-wallet and Tulaa. It's a combination of data that completes the picture, and geodata plays a very important role in that. I go to the next one, because if it's also great, why is it not used more often by financial service providers? And even Rabobank is not using it that much, although that's also changing because of the new developments. First reason is a lack of knowledge. A lack of knowledge on what is possible and what is possible now that wasn't possible 3 years ago. And NPM, together with his partners, plays a big role in that, in, let's say, unveiling that knowledge and making it available to a wider audience. So that's a very important part. But another one is that technology is complex. So there are many different technologies in geodata with many different characteristics, resolution, revisit rates, ability to deal with clouds, costs, quantitative, qualitative observation, think of radar technology. And that basically means there are many different solutions around. So which one to select? And that's not easy, not for a small MFI, but also not for a large bank, honestly. A more complicating factor is that even the user groups are very diverse. We all know that. Agriculture in general, smallholders especially, different crops, different countries, different regions. So very diverse user groups that really create quite a complex matrix. And then if you have the ideal product market fit, even end users have different priorities. So you may have a perfect tool that reduces transaction costs of a bank with 20%, but then the bank may suddenly face a strike of the employees or an interest cap, what happened in Kenya, for instance. And that simply means that it's very difficult to finance any primary producer, regardless of reduction of transaction costs of 20%. So there are always a lot of, let's say, problems to solve. And in the end, what I mentioned, you have product priority fit, product market fit, but also priority. And in fact, you have a three-dimensional matrix where you are looking at. And that simply means you need to do a lot of proof of concepts. Maybe you need to do 10, 20 proof of concepts to really understand where different types of geodata for different target groups add value. And that's exactly also the reason why we are here all together. That's the reason why NPM, together with Rabobank and FMO and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and ICCO, started this pilot. We saw that complexity and we thought, well, let's unite the suppliers, or let's bring them together at least, and let's bring together the users. And that makes much more sense, dealing with such a complicated matter. And of course, what we also know is that many smallholders have many problems, so they don't need one solution, they need integrated solutions. Again, a couple of great examples from Apollo, from Agri-wallet, from Tulaa, later on in the presentations. Looking at the way forward, what we do with NPM is awareness creation of users, but also awareness creation on the tech side about what the users look like. Because what I mentioned, most of the satellites have not been developed for smallholders. So there needs to be a kind of a bridge between the different suppliers and users. One of the things that still needs to be done is start with user needs. Start with what the users, the MFIs, and also the farmers basically needs. Looking at do's and don'ts and lessons learned, I was also asked to give a couple of comments on that. Coming to the last point, to the last bullet, new technology, new business organization. I had expected a bit more from traditional banks, honestly, in many countries all over the world. And more I see a role for new startups and scale-ups that are more lean, that are more agile, very fancy expressions, but at least they can adapt quickly. They're more tech-driven than traditional banks, at least in developing countries. So I have a lot of hope in those startups that bundle products, that bundle services in order to make it all more cost efficient. So it's not only about new technology, it's also about new business models that are being developed based on that technology. And that's exactly what we see. Where does innovation take place around geodata? Well, it's more and more moving beyond the traditional financial service providers. Because small SACCOs, MFIs are too small to do that by themselves. But large banks have just too much legacy often also to do it. So what do we see? We see fin-ag-tech companies, even combinations of that. But we also see mobile network operators. We see software companies entering this field, creating products. Fintechs. So yeah, a lot of interesting developments are going on. Just a couple of lessons learned, basically as an introduction. Take into account that financial service providers have different priority and different issues to solve. And not only the small MFIs, also the big banks. And what remains very important is remain very clear if you're an MFI or if you're working with MFIs, be very clear on the use case. What is the problem that you would like to solve? If you don't do that, you get lost. And there will be 20 geodata suppliers telling you that they all have a solution for it. And the more specific you are, the more likely you are to arrive at the right product and the right product market fit. Part of that question is also the question, the problem of whom are you going to solve? Is it the financial service provider? Is it the farmer? And that's already a big difference. Because a farmer may already know what the satellite tells you or tells him. But as a financial service provider with thousands of farmers, you may have a big need for that insight. So what doesn't add value to the farmer may still add a lot of value to the financial institution. Then we see a lot of different use cases per regions. If we do satellite monitoring for Dutch farmers, we have a farmer who just looks out of his window and sees the same. That there is a drought or that some parts of his land are not doing very well. Even the account manager of Rabobank probably lives next door to that farmer and he also sees the same. So in the Dutch setting, it's different, for instance, from Ukraine or Brazil or Australia, where farmers have thousands of hectares. So that's already a different use case. Even in Africa, it's again a different use case. So you have regions, you have farmers, you have financial service providers. Also there, it's important to identify what problem are you solving for whom. One of the exercises we usually do is we have clear conversations with end users. What is it that you like to solve? Do you want to reduce risk? Do you want to reduce transaction costs? What are the main components of that cost? What part can be solved using geodata and digitization in general? Is it pre-disbursement? Is it post-disbursement, where you make most of the costs? And that simply means, in spite of all the beautiful technology around, you have to spend a lot of time with the end users. And not only with the director, and that's also a lesson I learned from practice, and a hard one. Not just spend time with senior management, it's important to spend time with all parties involved, including the employees in the field. And I think Teshome and Mariel will elaborate more on that, although I had a different case in mind, honestly. So that's very important. You have to be solving the right problem at all levels, and all stakeholders need to have an interest to participate. And there are many unexpected reasons why people will not have the interests to participate that you might expect. So doing some almost applied anthropology or human-centered design studies, is whatever we call it, is extremely helpful before starting. And of course, integrate remote sensing solutions with other data. It's not only geodata, it's a combination and let's say the combined analytics on that provide the real value. And I'm very glad that we have a lot of interesting cases to discuss later on. So with that, I leave it to Catalina. Thanks for your attention, and also look forward to your questions later on.
Thank you very much, Albert. We're going to go on to our next speaker, and that is Mariel from ICCO Terrafina.
Hello, my name is Mariel Mensink. I'm going to present you a tool we have been developing in the process of working with agricultural loan and credit in different countries. And this tool was developed based on what we have experienced in several countries. We have an Excel tool for analyzing agricultural credit. And in Ethiopia, together with the Common Sense program, we have digitalized the tool and also connected it to some geodata. I'm very much in line with what Albert has said before, his observations. I just wanted to add one thing, and I think this is the case with Buusaa. Gonofaa is going to react to this. Organizations that are wanting to use this, especially now in the first status of this new technology, have to have a commitment to farmers. They have to be able to see not only the risks, but also the growth in production and grow with their farmers. And I think that is what Buusaa Gonofaa is also doing. It's really an organization that has its heart with farmers, with the rural population of Ethiopia. Otherwise, and Teshome can say something on that, I hope he's listening, that you will really, there's so many hiccups, especially in an environment as Ethiopia with a lot of technical constraints, nitty-gritties on connectivity and what that you have to have a big stamina to continue this process. Okay. So the tool was developed based on what we saw on agriculture. We work with 40 plus microfinance organizations and banks, also savings and credit organizations in Africa. And we see that we saw that the products of group solidarity was not actually fitting anymore into the needs of smallholder farmers, particularly the emerging farmers. And we think that this is a growing group in Africa. So we developed this agri-finance assessment tool based first of all on an Excel-based version. It's a tool to track agriculture performance, revenues, but also marketing information. And it's a tool to analyze risks and also to get all the information. The tool has to be developed for every season. The special information for a particular crop and for a particular market has to be filled. So we started with training this to the loan officers. So this is what you see now is an outline of the Excel-based in very short outline. It also includes other incomes from farmers, and it gives the loan officer an overview of the cash flow of certain products of that farmer and what could be the best loan conditions for this farmer. Now, this tool was the basis for developing the tablet version, which combines agriculture extension information, client profiles from core banking systems of financial institutions. I want to say we are working with both small and bigger MFIs. Some MFIs have over 100,000 clients. So it's not only small MFIs. Then we have, and most of those have also quite advanced core banking systems. Then you have geospatial information and market information all feeding into this application. And the geospatial information is particularly certain information that can be of use both for loan officers' risks assessment as well as for the farmer. Okay, so now we have this digital tool. It's user-friendly, efficient, generic, and also it has an offline function, which is very important in the context of Ethiopia. So you do, with this tool, you can do the loan assessment, input cost, labor cost, other information, and that one you have to fill in every season for every crop. The loan officer has to do that. You get an estimation of yield and revenue. You get a computing income and cash flow analysis, and also there's an automated loan decision flow. So for the different levels. So the processing modules are client screening, loan application, ACAD builder and processor, and client management. I'm going to zoom in a bit on the ACAD builder and the ACAD processor. Because that is the add-on to any other credit procedures. The ACAD builder is whereby you build into the tool per branch and per crop your prototype for a season. So you make, say if in an area you have maize, rice and beans, you can have 3 different crops. You build the prototype, what are the specificities for that crop, like inputs needed for each of these crops. There's estimated revenue, the market price. You build per crop a prototype. And you can do that, in fact, for an endless number of crops. Then, based on the prototype, you can quickly process say 500, 1,000, 2,000 clients of that area very quickly in the application, because you have the specificities per crop. And then this is the way how it looks like. We have the tablet applications for the client registration, for the screening, for the loan application. You have the cash flow calculation based on certain crops. And then we also have branch reports for certain crops. So you can also get overviews of the number of clients in a certain branch and that uses these crops. Now, we have also connected it in collaboration with the Common Sense program and especially University of Wageningen, linked it to certain geospecific information, namely rainfall and vegetation index, which shows crop monitoring for a certain crop. Of course, the plot size measuring is also automated done, because you have always geodata, geolocations on your data. So here in this case we have rainfall messaging, and especially what we noticed in this our testing with these agricultural loans, we noticed that the biggest loss, natural loss of natural calamities for the harvest were floods. And with this messaging of rainfall and also early alert message, we think that some of this could have been prevented. And also there is in the next slide, there is a monitoring of crop greenness, and so you can compare how the crop is progressing and also how one farmer is doing compared to others. So what have been so far the implications? We have seen that it has reduced loan appraisal time and increases accuracy on information of farmers. It allows also data storage and analysis per farmers, because we are not only filling in at the start of the loan, but also at the end of the loan, what are the actual achievements to compare, what the farmer has been projecting versus what they have actually achieved. It helps on loan decision, it helps on monitoring and also early warning on crop failure. And this is what has been happening so far. And for farmers, it has increased access to loans, and there's also improvement for production. And it has become a negotiation tool, interestingly, between loan officers and the farmers. because yeah, the farmers say now, this is how we should do it, and please give us this loan. So what we have learned, what is important, is that the tool has to be embedded in the infrastructure and tuned to the capacities of the staff of the microfinance organization. And the user case here is really typically we are focusing at the loan officer. We think it is very good if this can be combined with direct farmer education messaging, because that's a complementary service, which is not yet really happening in this case. So we also noticed that pre-digitalization is needed. So the actual training on the paper version was very crucial to get a faster uptake. We also want to get the data achieved, which is now also ongoing, and Teshome can say something on that. The link with Geodata provides opportunities, but it also requires good collaboration with other stakeholders. And in this case, there were many stakeholders, from producer organizations to like geodata experts. And these are sometimes people that talk different languages. And then, of course, the basic infrastructure and basic computer literacy is a great precondition. Actually, in our experience now with Buusaa, we really see that we need to have, there has to be an ICT champion on the ground who can really follow up on all of this. And even as we speak today, there are issues around the basic infrastructure related to Ethio Telecom network. And so there are issues around the basic infrastructure to make this work. Okay, thank you. I hope Teshome is there, I don't know.
Yes, thank you, Mariel. So we're now going to try and see, we've had some technical issues with Teshome, but I'm hoping that he has managed to join us. And yes. So for Teshome, he will be reacting on Mariel's presentation, and I have prepared just 2 questions as a means to start the conversation. I wanted to ask you, Teshome, as Buusaa, Gonofaa, MFI, what are the benefits of using the ACAD tool on your operation costs, on clients, on loan officers that are very central here, and the organizational implications of using that tool? Teshome.
You don't hear it.
So
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. Okay, good morning or good afternoon, good day for everybody. I'm Teshome from Buusaa, Gonofaa. Yeah, I think the benefit of the ACAD tool is probably it's good to put it in context. In the past, we have been doing smallholder farmers financing for crop-based, but our core business is really group loan, like a general purpose loan for farmers. So I have something like 85,000 farmers, customers, 70% of them are farmers, but we used to give a general purpose loan instead of appraising the loan, and that has never been really appropriate for the farmers. So we have been moving recently over the last 5 years to crop-based special type of financing for smallholders. As we entered that segment, one of the challenges we faced, we introduced individual loan based on, for inputs financing for wheat, maize, and malt barley. And doing loan appraisal is essential. It's a kind of, project financing. But we're doing it loan appraisal with a long number of pages of paper, something like 7 pages to, initially it was 11-page paper for appraisal, because you have to analyze both household and business as well for rural households, because they are smallholder and they don't really separate their business from their household. So that made it really very difficult for my staff to get to collect the loan appraisal data, to summarize it and to analyze and really to see one figure whether the loan officer has to give a loan or not. So the ACAD, the Excel tool that Mariel presented earlier, now that has even was like a 50% reduction in the loan appraisal process itself. Before, it looks like you are doing, you know, what they call this population census that are done by countries. You take, you know, send your staff with 11-page or 10, 20-page questionnaire, and then you process the data. But for loan appraisal, that has been the practice, and the Excel itself has reduced and streamlined that time and chaos of really working on paper-based loan appraisal forms. So that has now, when we change it to ACAD with the automated tablet, it's like reducing the whole time from 3 hours to roughly 45 minutes to 1 hour maximum. And over time, I guess the staff are going, as they become familiar with the technology, but also the link between the various questions and the flow of the questions. I am hoping that they reduce their appraisal time, at least for second time borrowers. They are going to reduce it probably to 30 minutes, but definitely less than 1 hour. So one of the operational implications is definitely reducing the appraisal time from 3 hours to 1 hour. Secondly, the accuracy of the data itself. Now, the staff himself is going to get a real-time updated figures. Previously, they collect the data on one 11-page paper or 7-page paper, come to office, they recalculate this all data again at office. Then they have to see whether the figures are consistent, whether the output of the figures, like, you know, yield, total production, production cost, blah, blah. They have to check these all things later on at office in really a very stable and easy situation. But in the field, they are only going to get the data and they have to analyze. Sometimes they have to go back and to confirm, because they don't know whether the income and the expense is, you know, consistent. Or sometimes what the farmers tell you, because they don't give you any record, it's just, it comes from memory. So they can't really calculate immediately on real time and ask probing questions or a clarification question. So it's really a chaotic work of doing it with a manual form. But with the ACAD, I think it has already substantially reduced the time. The other important issue with the ACAD is, because it has the geospatial data, you can get the location of the plot of the farm. In Ethiopia, we have a problem with, you know, certifying or assuring whether the farmer that he is showing us his land, his plot, may not necessarily belong to him, because few of them have a land certificate. So if I check the coordinates of that GPS location now, and next year, if my loan officer is going there for second loan, for sure we are going to get the same plot. But in previous, for example, we have been doing an irrigation. This year, the farmers shows us this farm. Another year, they'll show us another different plot. And sometimes we don't recognize. Sometimes he says, you know, no, this is my plot and that's not my plot. It should be your mistake or something like that. So in terms of trust and in terms of validating the land location is another issue. The other third issue is farmers know about their land size just by estimate. And what they say is 1 hectare might be only, you know, less than a hectare or even more than a hectare. And that is the basis on which we are going to decide on the production and the profitability of the production and etc. But previously, everything is estimate. But now, it will really help us to know exactly what the land size is and whether, you know, the input and etc. that the farmer is using is reasonable, or whether that's really by the money he's asking, whether that input and that land size can be fully financed. We can't check in the past, but now this helps us to check that. And lastly, on this point, the most important I would expect is still we didn't reach that stage, but before there are farmers, irrigation farmers that we have financed for 4 or 5 years in the past. We don't have any data on their previous historical performance. Why? Because it's manual. Even the appraisal purpose, it's really a kind of pressurizing. It's not really a measurement exercise because it is manual. But with the ACAD, what it is going to give us is, now, if I have financed this farmer 5 times, my staff will again collect the actual achieved data, and we definitely know for the past 4 or 5 loans, for example, I'm going to know what was the difference between the amount he financed, the plan, and what was the actual output at the end of the day and the revenue. And if for the last 4 loan cycles, these comparisons are done, and there is a farmer that might score always with only 10% variation, a second farmer with 50% variation, definitely their eligibility and their management practice is fundamentally different. That's what this data is going to tell us. So it's really going to serve us as a tool for judging and following over time, judging and estimating or measuring the management skill and capacity of the farmers themselves with the help of the data that is captured by the tablet. So
thank you so much, Teshome. Yes? Sorry, I need to cut you short because of time. Okay. Thank you so much. We will have a bit of time for questions directed to you after the speakers.
Okay.
The following speakers. Thanks so much for really bringing this application to our attention. We are going to move on to the next speaker, and that is Céline Nobel from VanderSat.
Good morning, everybody. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. I am the Social and Environmental Initiatives Coordinator of the Dutch satellite data company VanderSat, and as Catalina has already said, we were one of the winners of the NPM challenge, and for this challenge we developed an idea which we call TARA, and I'm going to talk about that now. Let me see if there... How can I go to the next slide? Catalina, it's not working like it was working before.
Okay, I will do it for you.
Yeah, okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is, yeah, okay. The mission that we as a company have is that we want to make positive impact over 250 million of hectares of land before the end of next year by providing the unique satellite services of our VanderSat data in 3 customer segments. And it really touches upon what Albert said, that we believe we have a solution, in this case to the global food and water crisis, but to find relevant partners to enable them to solve this problem or be part of the solution, yeah, it's really tricky. We have developed the agricultural, food and commodities market segment, insurance and banking and water management, and today I will focus on the insurance and banking. And just to give you like a pre-updated, we are already delivering services to 120 million of hectares at the moment. So we are halfway of our mission for next year. Next slide, please. Yes, and here you see our services listed that we have created over the last 3 years. and we provide 5 unique operational satellite services. Some are already really operational, and the others are under development. The most important ones and most relevant ones for the audience today is, I believe, the precision farming advice we deliver to farmers and agricultural suppliers in the food industry, but also crop yield prediction improvements based on our soil moisture data. We provide crop yield prediction of major crops. Another important service of VanderSat is that we operate as an index insurance independent calculation agent, as we now call it, which basically means that our operational satellite data is fed into the models of insurance and reinsurance companies. And we created several insurance products, such as the drought index, the moisture excess index, but we're also working on wildfire insurance and flood risk insurance. And we deliver our data in order to enable reinsurers and insurance companies to make better risk assessments and provide better tailored insurance products, which include climate change, which is really important. And the other one is the credit risk score improvement for loans, which I will focus on in the next slides, and another is water and fire management. Next slide, please. And this is actually the project TARA, which was the project we applied for in the NPM Challenge. And TARA stands for Tool for Agricultural Risk Advice, and it is a risk assessment platform for agricultural advice and credit scoring, in which our climate dataset is one of the datasets in order to calculate different risk types that a farmer faces, which are partly caused by climate change, but also by farmer ability, by many farmer-specific characteristics like crop type, how he or she is farming, and also whether or not he or she has a history with loans, and whether or not he or she paid it back, etc. And together with ACAD Africa and Tulaa, we work on a platform in order to combine the different data sets to get a more complete view on an individual farmer that is asking for a loan or access to credit, and to make a better credit assessment. Next slide, please. Yeah, and we were asked to walk you through the most important project steps we have done so far, because the idea is that we want to have a prototype ready after the 6 months of the project of NPM that is already developed in collaboration with potential users, because I will talk about that later, but this development of the prototype is done by the 3 partners I just mentioned, and we have processed our high quality geodata and did an automated quality check, which is always important for us to actually connect a good data set to a model, or in this case the models of ACAD. ACAD has been collecting yield data, and Tulaa is collecting financial scoring data, or they have done that. Regarding the prototype, we will be doing some technical steps soon to actually start calculating the farmer risks, and also integrate the findings we've done throughout the project to improve the prototype, because in the end, this is the main goal of TARA, to have a good prototype that includes all these data sets. Tulaa, as more or less the implementing partner within the pilot, has set up a lending test case and has yet dispersed loans to, actually it were 90 potato farmers in Nakuru, Kenya, and thereby we developed a baseline group because we want to collect financial and psychometric data, and after that there will be a pilot group and the potato farmers are the pilot group in which we test the prototype. And then another important part of TARA is the market scoping and stakeholder analysis. Together with ACAD, or actually ACAD together with us, has developed a questionnaire because we really wanted to know how can we improve marketability of a platform in which quite a difficult data integration is made, and it's unique. So you need to talk with potential clients to know, like I heard somebody saying, you need to know the problems that are actually out there to know to what extent satellite data can solve this, and the other data sets that are combined in TARA. So we've held our first stakeholder workshop recently, the 3rd of April. And I think maybe even one of the listeners of today have maybe also been involved in this stakeholder meeting. And there were a lot of questions. And I think, according to VanderSat, didn't attend the whole workshop because we were here at the stakeholder workshop was in Kenya. But according to the project partner ACAD, it was really successful and really, really interesting to hear about their needs. And the second one will be held in the beginning of May. And the main idea is that we want to integrate all the lessons we learned from these stakeholder events, but also the learning test case, into an improved prototype. Next slide, please. I'm not sure how. I think I also have 10 minutes, so I will talk a bit quicker. Then we were asked, what are the main lessons learned so far? Well, one of the main things that are important if you have a project, for example, in this case of 6 months, in the end, the natural timing of a crop, in this case potatoes, you want to learn something with through the time. You cannot change that because you plant the crop and there's a moment in time where you harvest it. And if you want to learn from things you're testing, in the end, the natural timing is key. And these should be used to increase project success and also the extent to which you can learn from a project. We see that partnerships are really important. For example, VanderSat is indeed a satellite data provider, and I think we have a very unique data set, but the data in itself doesn't have real power if we don't find the right users. So, and therefore, the data is global, but the partners are and the users are global. So you really need to invest in good partnerships, and thereby we believe that not only satellite experts like the team of VanderSat can actually use the added value of satellites, and we all have a different piece of the puzzle. And then as soon as you start partnering up, communication is key and challenging, sometimes by technical issues, but also expertise and cultural differences are always there. And that's, I think also important to keep in mind that if you do a project together, you set an end goal, but expectation management is really important in that. And as a message to all the listeners here and all the different FSPs from all different countries, I think, and Albert already said it as well, we need to work on actual examples in which satellite applications are made and developed for FSPs, and to build a track record, also to show and to learn how this can be done in general, but also learn and show how it can be scaled up. And how these different worlds can come together, which is not easy. Next slide, please. Well, the main purpose of TARA is that we decrease basis risk of FSPs when they want to provide financial solutions. Because with TARA, you can distinguish and quantify the different risk types that farmers face. And the aim is to develop cheaper and tailored financial solutions. And I think most of these points I have already mentioned, just that regarding the cost structure is that within Tara we work with different FSPs. We work towards a structure in which we hope that different FSPs can eventually connect to Tara. And that brings me to the next slide. Here on the right you see the VanderSat viewer, and on the left you see the blocky structure of traditional core scale satellite data, in this case about soil moisture. It is quite blocky, and on the right side you see the high resolution soil moisture data, for which it becomes possible to develop applications on smallholder scale. And this data set of ours is extremely scalable. We have it on a global, we have it for the whole globe, and that also makes the Tara platform scalable as well, because the infrastructure is out there, and it will become possible to do automated credit scoring through our VanderSat API and the VanderSat viewer. And the idea is that we develop plug-in features in which FSPs have their own risk data connected to the VanderSat data and model of ACAD to improve the credit scoring. And we are looking within the pilot for different payment options, either a core per farmer or per farm risk type, a license fee, or a version in which core scale data is freely available to make everybody enthusiastic, or at least show what the tool can do. And then a license fee in which high resolution data will become available. Then at last, I hope I'm not over the time. As I said before, there's a connection of different systems, which is the operational satellite data service of VanderSat, the credit scoring schemes and the stakeholder network of ACAD, and in the case of the Tara test case, the distribution channel of Tulaa. And with Tara, we want to make bundling smallholder services, as smallholders don't have one problem, as was mentioned before, but we hope to develop insurance, loan, and advisory packages in which insurance, loan, and agri advice are connected to enable farmers to deal better with climate change and all the other problems they have. And at last, this is, I think, in line with the mission I started with VanderSat, that we want to have positive impact. And in this case, with Tara, we focus on the smallholder and financial institutions. The idea is to have automated data collection, cost reduction of field visits, because it's no longer needed to go directly to every field, because the satellite data is, to a large extent, informing us enough about risks. And thereby increase affordability for smallholder farmers to apply for loans, because they're better tailored to their particular situation. Thank you for listening. I think this was my last slide. No, it wasn't. Okay, this is my last slide then. What can we do for you if, after hearing about Tara and the VanderSat data, you are interested to invest in a spin-off to be connected to the Tara platform? This is possible by participating in one of our beta programs, and you can contact me for a follow-up call. I'm really happy to talk about this in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Céline, for this. So right after this presentation of Tara, I would like to invite Vishal Ajmera from Tulaa, who is a partner in this project. And my question to you is, how do you foresee the potential of remote sensing? So you're teaming up with Tara. How will, and VanderSat, Acre Africa, how will having then access to this soil moisture, vegetation growth data impact your clients?
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Vishal Ajmera, and I'm the Chief Product Officer at Tulaa. So before I answer Catalina's question, let me just quickly give you a 10-cent version of what Tulaa is and what we do. So Tulaa is a startup social enterprise that is working towards a double bottom line of being for-profit and delivering impact to smallholder farmers. Tulaa's mission is connecting smallholder farmers to markets by leveraging technology to reduce the risk of transacting with smallholder farmers and also increasing their productivity and profitability. Uh, Tulaa is an end-to-end platform that's giving farmers access to inputs, uh, credit, advisory, and access to markets to sell their commodities. Now, just one caveat for Tulaa is that the loans we give to smallholder farmers, it's in kind. We don't give out any cash loans. Now, back to the question that Catalina asked, like, what do we see the potential of remote sensing and how does it essentially add value? So, given that we are a startup, and one of the things that Albert mentioned at the start of the presentation, which rings true, is having the lack of knowledge of using this alternative data sources, geodata being one of it. Now, for us, what is very important is proactively looking for any opportunities to de-risk these farmers and also opportunities to help them increase their productivity. By partnering with VanderSat and Acre Africa, we're leveraging two separate skill sets or domain expertise in a way. Uh, VanderSat's expertise in remote sensing and providing soil moisture and vegetation growth data, and Acre Africa's ability to create insurance products that are more relevant to smallholder farmers essentially gives us an opportunity to de-risk these farmers from both environmental and agronomic risk perspective. This is obviously very, very important for a startup like ours, and which and a couple of pain points that all the panelists and most of the attendees probably know is that smallholder farmers in Africa and especially in Kenya as well have limited to no digital financial footprints. So doing any sort of risk assessment on these farmers becomes difficult because you cannot leverage traditional methods that MFIs or banks traditionally use to assess the risk of a customer. The other part of it is how we see this playing a big part in our growth is, can we actually leverage this data and provide more targeted advisory? Let farmers know that, look, if there's a drought coming, these are the certain reactions you can do. These are some of the inputs you can buy off the platform, and also give them more alerts in a more timely manner that allows them to react to it. So our interest is twofold, as I explained. One is to de-risk them and also to use this data to help them increase their productivity.
Thanks very much, Vishal, for this. I have one last question for you. So as a platform onboarding farmers, you partner with different FSPs, and we've got some FSPs listening in. So I would want to have you share what would be an ideal FSP for you to partner with.
Yeah, no, sure. So just to clarify, currently we are not working with any FSPs. We were partnering with a few early on in our journey, and Tulaa has been in existence since July 2017. The partnerships didn't work out for a few reasons. One, from our perspective, we didn't really understand what the FSPs were looking for in terms of a value add when we are bringing this sort of customers to them for essentially for loan approval. And from our end, given that we are working in the best interest of smallholder farmers, we didn't sense the same level of nimbleness or agility in terms of creating loan products that are more catered to the bottom of the pyramid, or moreover smallholder farmer sort of candidates. And I guess some of the difficulties, as I mentioned earlier, is that the risk assessment is, to my experience, and I work with a very small sample size, so I can't for sure say this is a widespread problem. But the FSPs we attempted to work with, the issue was that they were still using traditional risk assessment procedures to approve a loan, which is more or less $200 to $300, and it becomes very, very difficult to justify, one, the operational costs associated with doing those assessments, because they require farm visits, so on and so forth. And secondly, leveraging the traditional financial footprint data that they would use to assess any other customer. So for these reasons, the partnerships we had didn't really work out, but we are of course hoping that we're going to be able to prove through our own lending test case, where we are currently lending to farmers directly, to prove out a model that not only has a good portfolio quality, but also shows methods that can be leveraged going forward in a scalable manner, where we are able to assess these farmers in a favorable manner to give them the right credit facility that doesn't over-indebt them and get them into this vicious cycle.
All right, clear. Thank you so much, Vishal. We're going to move on to the last two interventions, and those will be two quick overviews of the other two winners of the MPM challenge. I invite first Elizabeth Masters from Apollo Agriculture.
Thanks so much, Catalina. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'll just give a brief summary of Apollo, and then I'll talk about one of the lessons learned on our side about applications for geodata. So our model actually sounds quite a bit similar to Tulaa. We are a technology company that provides asset financing, so bundled input loans consisting of inputs like seed and fertilizer, bundled with insurance and advice delivered digitally to smallholder farmers currently in Kenya. And we're heavily vertically integrated, meaning that we do everything from acquire customers ourselves to source inputs, supply inputs, train farmers, and collect repayment. We start with maize, and the reason being that it is the most abundant staple food crop in sub-Saharan Africa. And then gradually we introduce higher ROI products, for example, tomatoes, potatoes, and sorghum. So we use geodata as one data source in our credit modeling assessment process. And one insight this year, as anyone who's making loans in Kenya right now may note, the rains are fairly delayed. So last year, we had customers planting their maize loans by now. So I think the rain started in late February, early March, and it's now early April. So an interesting insight for us this year is that, in fact, providing more customized harvest deadlines. So just to clarify, our customers' loans are, the term of the loan is highly correlated, highly tied to the crop cycle. So if the customer plants in March, they typically repay the loan in full after they've harvested, as many customers depend on harvest for their income. So after they harvest their crop in, say, December, that's when they clear their loan. And there's a tricky balance of wanting to give a customer the appropriate window, so say 2 weeks, enough time to harvest their crop and sell it in order to clear their loan, but not enough time, not so much time that they're disincentivized to repay their loan in a timely way. So you can imagine that if there's a one-size-fits-all loan deadline across many regions of Kenya, you can actually create a situation where some customers have an appropriate deadline, but others do not. And so for us, one of the exciting possibilities with geodata that we're exploring right now is how can we use inferences from the satellite data that we collect for each customer to provide a highly customized harvest deadline. So there's many other takeaways for us, but given a short window, I'll just leave you with that one.
Thanks very much, Liz. We'll go on to the last short intervention from Ad Rietberg, and he is from Agri-wallet.
Thank you very much, Catalina. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. So Agri-wallet is like an M-Pesa for agriculture. We work like M-Pesa with text-based messaging. So that means it can work on any phone. And that's why we can work with any farmer, even farmer with old simple feature phones. Now, in this project, we work together with Geodetics, who provides us with geodata and farmer profiles, and we work with Rabobank Foundation, who provides us with the funds for onwards lending. We have in the project 2 phases. We have the pre-disbursement phase, and we have the post-disbursement phase. We have just finished the pre-disbursement phase, and that meant that we used the geodata to create farmer profiles, and these farmer profiles were then used to do risk assessment and create credit scores. And based on these credit scores, we have provided loans credit to the farmers based on the funding we received from the Rabobank Foundation. The challenge we have here is that if we want to scale this, now we've done this with 100 farmers, if we want to scale this, we have to automate it. And we are looking at ways how we can automate and integrate systems so that we can really scale this in the future to millions of farmers. So currently we are moving, most of the farmers have used the credit, have bought seeds, have bought fertilizer, and have started their season. And we now are in the post-disbursement service, and here we will use the geodata for 3 specific purposes. We will look at how we can use the geodata for risk management. We use geodata to use it for risk protection, meaning risk in insurance. How can we insure the farmer against extreme weather? And we use the geodata to look for potential of additional credit, for example, top dressing or crop protection. Now here we see, again, the challenge of integrating data. So integrating the geodata into the monitoring of the crops. And also what we are looking here for on the insurance side is how can we monitor when we have an extreme weather situation. So here we have to link actual weather data with historic weather data, so that we can say, yes, this farmer qualifies for a payout in case there's an extreme drought or extreme rain. So that's the moment where we are now, and we're looking forward to work with our partners and MPN in this project. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ed. So apologies, we started a bit later, so I'll jump in straight into the 2 questions I have so far, and those are going to Tulaa. What were some of the geodata inputs used for the Tulaa application? Or maybe, well, how are you managing expectations?
Hi, Catalina. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. So could you repeat the first question? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Could you repeat the first question?
What were some of the geodata inputs used for the Tulaa application?
So just to clarify, in terms of geodata, we're currently just geotagging our farmers to understand their locations and where their farms are essentially located. But for the application itself, this is what we are currently building under the Tulaa project with VanderSat and ACAD Africa to use other sources of geodata like the soil moisture data, land temperature data to create some level of risk mitigation tools.
Thank you for that. Céline, would you want to add to this?
The fact that Tulaa is not using satellite data yet, I think that's probably representative for many risk assessment organizations. So it's just a challenge. And how you manage expectations is, I think, by starting working on this and starting to investigate together how this can be of use or not. But I don't know if that really answers the question, but so far my addition.
Thanks a lot, Céline. I actually want to extend that question about managing expectations to Mariel. Regarding the ACAD tool.
Yeah, I think that is a very interesting question because sometimes we feel we are running faster than some of the implementers can. There are, as I mentioned, there are a lot of technical hiccups often. I feel that we are now at the stage that in the case of Buusaa, some of the geodata information beyond just geotagging is used. But yeah, I think if we assume that something can be done in a year, we might as well. Our realistic expectation is that it will take at least 3 years before something is coming out. So you have to add a factor 3 to make it really work and have a proper tool that can be really fully certified as this is now working and we can roll it out properly. That's what we have learned so far. So we are trying to be realistic on expectations on the ground, and we are also, in our case, we want to have the combination of technology and the human interface as well. We think it's in rural Africa that's very important to have some level of human interface with clients, because that is how the realities of the farmers in Africa are functioning now. They are mostly working on human contact, so we don't want to skip that completely from loan officers. That is also one important message we have. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Maybe others?
I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting. If there are any more questions, please type them in the Q&A box. All right, we have a question here directed to Agri-wallet regarding the use of geodata for crop insurance, asking how you give valuable services to investing partners.
How we give valuable service to investing partners.
They also say, well, we believe that you should include marketability when making operational services. And how is it that you yourself give valuable services to the investing partners involved?
Yeah. So if investing partners here, in this case, are, let's say, like the Rabobank Foundation, who provides the loans for onward lending, then together with Rabobank Foundation, we use the geodata and the farmer profile to determine the level of the risk assessment and the credit profiles. So we give them more insight in how, and better data, how risk assessment and credit profiling is done. On the post-disbursements service, we have to think about the de-risking. The de-risking is, of course, the insurance part, for instance, where we have the extreme weather insurance. And there we protect the farmers from the extreme weather so that the credit is insured and can be paid back from the insurance. So we have de-risking there in the post-disbursement service by, first of all, making sure that the loans are earmarked only to buy inputs, and secondly, with the insurance, that if there's extreme weather, that the credit can be paid back from the insurance premium, the insurance payout.
All right, thank you so much for this. I unfortunately have to close the webinar, so don't want to go further, and I would like everyone to be able to close off on time. I want to thank all of the participants. I want to thank all of the speakers. We've heard that from Albert that you need to be very clear about what problem you want to solve, and then the step of integrating geodata in order to see how this can be solved is really crucial. And this is something that came through quite a bit, spending time with the end user, the pre-digitalization phase that Mariel talked about, the training of the loan officers. What also came out a lot is strong partnerships and communication. One size doesn't fit all from Liz. Of course, you need to spend time and again get to know the end user. And get, yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, and I will close the webinar with this thought. Thank you so much for everyone joining us. We will remain in touch. This webinar has been recorded, so we can send that to you. And we'll be happy to put you in touch with the speakers or any participants that are included. So don't doubt in reaching out to us. Thank you very much.